take this one if you guys don't mind. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the ERN Luncheon Special. I'm super excited to be here and to be the moderator for the lunchtime STEM Career Pathways panel. My name's Leung. I'm with the Sustainable Horizons Institute, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And I'm super excited to be serving in this role for a couple reasons. One is that I am lucky to have been part of the ERN since its inception. So in the very first year, 14 years ago, I was part of ERN and have been serving as a judge and in other roles here. And so it's really great for me to be here to see how the conference is progressing and to see the community that I've been so endeared with over the last 14 years. The other reason I'm really excited about moderating this panel is in my day work, I get to have a really great job where I help people achieve their dreams, and that is we help people with their career pathways in STEM. So this panel today is going to give us an opportunity to explore that, and I'm super excited to be part of that. So we're going to have a conversation with 3 STEM professionals from varied backgrounds that I think you'll find their stories quite interesting and very inspiring. So this panel is going to bring together leaders from across STEM, across the STEM workforce to share their professional journeys, illuminate the challenges they have navigated throughout their careers, and highlight the breadth of career opportunities available to you as emerging undergraduate and graduate STEM researchers. So the format we're going to use is we'll start with panel introductions. I'll introduce a panelist and then invite them to come up and share a few introductory remarks about their journey. And then that will be followed by moderated Q&A and then audience Q&A and then a few closing remarks from our panelists. So I know this is a really engaging audience, so we're going to try to give lots of time for you to come up and ask questions at the mics across the fields. So the first panelist I'm going to introduce is Joseph Bonivel. He's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and a program director at the U.S. Department of War, where he serves as a subject matter expert for the Department of Defense, and he leads disruptive technology, incubation, and maturation for the Undersecretary of the Defense for Research and Engineering. In his role as a senior fellow for Geotech Center at Atlantic Council, he provides senior policy guidance in AI, advanced manufacturing materials, and emerging technologies. I encourage you to go to the HOVA app to read his full bio, but with that, I'm going to kind of go ahead and turn it over to him so he can share his path with you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. I'm always interested when people are reading my bios. I'm like, I can't believe I did some of this stuff. I don't remember doing this stuff, so I think I'm getting older, and I'm not prepared for it. First off, thank you to AAAS. Thank you to NSF. I was not fortunate enough to be ERN fellow or ERN participant, but this is amazing. I've talked to some of you downstairs with your posters. I mean, you are light years ahead of where I was when I was an undergraduate. And so kudos to you, kudos to yourself for doing those things. So I'm going to talk for a few moments about my journey, kind of where I landed, and then kind of move forward from there. So I am looking for a clicker. Here it is. So I'm going to talk to you about being curious. So this may be a little bit of me talking to you all and talking to people that don't necessarily need to have that curiosity put into them, but I want you to make sure you take this back home to your fellow students, to your fellow professors. Being curious is kind of the linchpin of my mantra of my life. As you go through and you look at the things I've done and you look at where I've been, it hasn't been because I wanted to do these things. It's been because I was curious and I wanted to try something different. And so as I kind of step through my whole life story, which I'm going to give you in an abbreviated fashion, everything started with me being curious. So when I was about 6 years old, I took, some of you probably don't remember this, but antennas used to stick out of cars. And when they stuck out of cars, you would get radio waves, and that's how the sound came into your car, excuse me. When I was a kid, I took some fishing wire, and I tied it across the street between two light poles and knocked off all of the antennas for all of the cars driving by. I did this on purpose, so obviously I got in trouble for it, but I did this because I wanted to understand how this worked. Like, it was like magic to me. Like, there was radio waves that came in and then you heard sound, and I needed to figure out how that worked. Now, my parents ended up having to pay for everybody's car that had their antenna broken, so I got in trouble for it. But that's kind of the first memory I have of me being curious and trying to understand something. You fast forward that, I go to school for a scholarship. I went to the University of South Carolina, so hello to any Gamecocks in here. And I was on a track scholarship there. And so my goal at that time was to be an Olympic athlete. I was going to be, you might not know who Michael Johnson is, but I was going to be the next Michael Johnson. I had gold shoes. I was going to be the fastest person running. I broke my leg in 3 places. I've never ran again. So that is kind of, I always think about Mike Tyson saying, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And so that was my punch in the face. But thankfully, I had enrolled in mechanical engineering. I was still curious. I still wanted to build stuff. I still wanted to understand how things are being built. And so I kind of just matriculated through the mechanical engineering program. Now, one of the things I did when I was an undergrad was I was in En-ROADS, and I was REU fellow. And so I focused on doing internships at Michelin. And so I did an internship at Michelin Aircraft and Tire right up the road here in Norwood, North Carolina. And what I realized is I hated working in a factory. So I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work in a factory. I'm not going to be a mechanical engineer that works in a manufacturing plant. And so that curiosity to see how I could go and work in that factory and then turn around and hate it let me know that that wasn't for me. And that is what kind of took me down that academic path. I never thought about getting a PhD. I never thought about getting a master's degree. I never thought about anything past getting a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering and moving forward. But I had a professor, Philip Vogelweed from Marquette, that said, hey, have you ever thought about grad school? I'll pay for it. You just got to come to class and we will get you a master's degree in biomedical engineering. I said, well, if you're paying for it, I don't know anything about it, but sure, I'll learn about robotics and I'll learn about biomedical engineering and I'll try something new. I graduated with that degree, and then I got a call from somebody at Carnegie Mellon saying, hey, what do you know about material science? I was like, I don't even know what that is. We don't have that degree in my school, so I've never even heard of material science. But you're paying for it, so I'm happy to come, and I'm happy to go learn about material science and become a PhD in that field. And so as you matriculate, it was just because I was curious about things. I was curious about trying something new and trying to understand what that was. You fast forward, first job. My PhD is in semiconductor manufacturing for integrated circuits. So you think I'd go work at an Intel or go work at an AMD or an NVIDIA. I missed that boat. I missed that boat. You think I would work at one of those places, but instead I decided to go work at United Technologies Research Center, which is Raytheon Technologies, working on jet engines, helicopters, working on air conditioners, working on fire suppression systems, all of these systems that I had no idea about, but I just wanted to understand. Did that for 5 years until I felt like I was an expert in that and decided to become a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellow, which I want everyone in here to please consider when you finish your PhD. It is a program that puts scientists and engineers with PhDs into the federal workforce to work and influence STEM policy. And so you can either work in the executive branch or you can work on the congressional branch on the Hill. That program changed my life, and I think it changed my trajectory of things that I wanted to do. Now, did I have any policy experience? Absolutely not. But they teach you everything you need to know through the professional development, and it has led to how I've moved forward in life in being able to be a STEM and policy advocate. Now, again, kind of went from classroom all the way to global impact. That's talking about me. Now I really kind of want to talk more about what you guys are doing here, right? And kind of how I've gotten into this network. So I talked about being curious and making sure that you understand that you've just got to try something. You've got to go out there and you've got to try it and you got to see what happens. Every door that you open opens 5 more doors. So trying to get out of your comfort zone and move into something that you've never done before and then become an expert in it opens 5 more doors that you weren't there. And it becomes this kind of nebulous network that you're able to kind of figure out what you like to do, what you don't like to do. I still say this every day. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, right? And I'm well past where you all are. But I don't, because I still want to challenge myself. I still want to understand kind of how do I challenge myself in order to make sure that I learn something new that I've never done before? So again, you can go industry, you can go into the government, you can go into research. I really do want to have questions about all 3 of these because I've been in all 3 of these, and I can really give you some ideas and some insights into kind of the things that I do and the things that I think are really cool and the things that I think are rather boring. So for me, I think being curious also equates to becoming bored. So when I become an expert in something, I want to learn something else. And so I continue to evolve and continue to move forward in those paths. Now, let me be very honest now. We have to be honest about these things. Just because I'm curious about something does not mean I'm successful at it. So I can go and say I want to learn how to be a machine learning programmer and I'm going to be the best programmer that there was. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm able to do it, but I'm curious about it. One of the things that I want everybody in this room, because I see a lot of, the HBCU, I see a lot of people of color. I see a lot of women in this room. And right now, our voices are being suppressed. And I want everybody to know that you have to be in that room. I am often the only person in these meetings advocating for us and advocating for diversity in STEM, diversity of thought. I think what we have to realize is that as you move through these levels in life and socioeconomic status, you realize that people solve problems differently. And they have a unique way to solve those problems, and that's based on their upbringing. And when you silence those voices, you're unable to get those solutions that you could have if you didn't have that diversity in the room. So I want everybody to remember, even if you're the only one in that room, your voice matters, your importance matters, and your thought process matters. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, you got to be uncomfortable. So you have to be uncomfortable as you grow. Right? So if you are in a room and you know everything, or you're the smartest person in this room, I'm sure you've heard that before, then you're in the wrong room. I always want to make sure that I'm uncomfortable when I'm learning. If I'm uncomfortable, then that means I'm growing. And if I'm growing, that means I'm getting better, I'm gaining confidence. So I've got one more slide for you. For you all, what's next? What do I see next? What do I see in the marketplace? Everybody knows AI, right? I get paid to sit around and think about ways that AI can solve world problems, right? Everything from famine to medical diseases to war, to war, and the biotech. But the future ahead is not in a silo anymore. So the days of a mechanical engineer making the hardware and then passing it to an electrical engineer who's doing the software, who then passes it to a computer engineer who does the computer programming, that is gone. Everything is interdisciplinary, and nobody's in a silo. So one of the major things that I've learned over the last 15 years of my career is I need to know what everybody's doing, and everybody needs to know what I'm doing, because we're all implementing this together. And so as you go through and you become an expert in biochemistry, just understand that you're going to be working with someone who's not a biochemist, and you also need to understand what they're doing so that you can be interdisciplinary as you solve these problems. I think you're at a unique place. Like, you have access to technology, you have access to resources that we never had, or I never had, I should say. And that impact is immediate, it's global. There are people looking at what you're doing right now and what we're putting out right now that are going to be affecting places in Israel, in Iran, in Egypt. These solutions that you're coming up with are global in their impact. And so I look forward to hearing your questions, and I'm a little bit excited to see what your next steps are. So in 15 years, when I come back, somebody in this room is probably going to be the CEO of a space company that lands on Mars. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bonivel, for those great comments. I love the points that you made, and it really is important to have different voices at the table, and at the table making things happen, especially in the days that we're reaching now with lots of things going on with AI and workforce and everything that's happening. So really nice. Okay, so now I'm excited to introduce our second panelist, which is Dr. Joscelyn Mejias, who's an assistant professor at the Wallace H. Coulter Department of Biomedical Engineering at Georgia Institute of Technology and Emory University. She has been doing work in bioengineering and doing lots of great stuff and has a really interesting background. So let's welcome her to give her opening remarks.
Does that work? Ooh, so loud. Okay. So I'm Dr. Joscelyn Mejias. It is my first time being at this conference, and I'm thrilled to be here. And I have no idea how to use this clicker. Thank you. So I wanted to go through my career route and path, and I feel like I've had a pretty standard academic path. I went to undergrad, I did my grad school, I did a postdoc, and I ended up in academia. But there's a lot along that path that was a lot of failure, and so I want to share that with you because I think sometimes we forget that there's a lot of people who go through the same things as us. So I started off, I was born and raised in South Texas in the lower Rio Grande Valley, so right on the border. I went to Rice University for undergrad because both of my brothers were rejected and I wanted to be better than them. So my CV says that I have a BA in Asian Studies, a BS in Bioengineering, and I graduated with a distinction in Research and Creative Works, which meant that I did a lot of, lab work to get there. I also did an internship at the National Space Biomedical Research Institute, and there's little baby me at the flight director thing, and I was quite happy about that. But what my CV misses is that when I wanted to join a research lab, I emailed 4 or 5 different professors, and luckily I heard back from them, and they all said no. So I used a little bit of nepotism. My parents are both faculty at a university. They reached out to the engineering department, and they said, my daughter really wants to do lab work. And so for my first summer after undergraduate, I went back home to UT Pan American, and somebody gave me a lab opportunity to do work, and it was so much fun. And I remember asking people, how do I actually get into a lab? And they said, well, chances are you're going to have to do dishes before you're able to actually do anything. And I would like to tell you to not settle for dishes, because the mentors who have taught me the most are the people who see me more than just a person in the lab, but someone that they can help grow. So then I applied to 10 PhD programs. I still haven't heard from a few of them. I got 3 interviews, and I landed at Georgia Tech and Emory University. And so what my CV says is I have a master's and a PhD. I am a President's Fellow, a Gosueta Fellow. I was on 2 training grants through Georgia Tech. I have an NSF GRFP, and I am a Sloan Minority PhD scholarship. And along the way, my advisor got an NSF Engineering Research grant, and they took this really cool picture that has been in the media a couple of times, and that's me and one of my undergrads who was a summer student, who then also ended up getting her PhD. And so the part of academia that I love is the training and being able to work with students. And what it misses is that I applied 3 times to the GRFP. There's 5+ fellowships and awards that I applied to that I also didn't get. And I had to retake my qualifying exam, which was so much fun. So from here, what I learned was most important is pick your mentor wisely. My mentor was incredibly supportive. There was a running joke every time I said I was applying to a fellowship. He was like, I have to update your letter. Be curious. The first lab that I worked in maybe wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but they were giving me the opportunity to learn. My undergrad lab, I worked on kinesin motor mutations. I don't even remember how kinesin motors work. And it's a marathon, so my PhD ended up being 6 years, and so that is a very long time. So then I moved on to my professional path. I had my PhD. I moved to a postdoc at Johns Hopkins. I won the Postdoc Accelerator Award. I won the L'Oreal for Women in Science, thank you AAAS. And I am a NIH National Institute of Aging Mosaic K99 recipient. And so I got to give a talk at the National Academies, which was so much fun. And that morning, I texted my advisor, because I was also on the faculty market, and I went, hey, you forgot to submit my letter. Could you please submit my letter? So what the CV misses is I applied to at least 3 other fellowships that I got turned down from. And I had COVID restrictions. So for about 2 years, we had these limitations on how many people could be in lab, how long you could be in lab. I am 100% wet lab, which means that if I'm not in lab, I'm not collecting data. And then I had a couple of in vivo experiments that were delayed, or I had to end them early because of random things that happened on campus. And I was a 6-week time point, so if I had to end at 4 or 5 weeks, I wasn't getting my data. And I decided that I was a little bit tired of my postdoc and running into the 4th or 5th year, and so I went on the faculty market. I applied to 18 faculty positions, which seems like a lot, but I also had a friend who did 80. I did better than I did for my undergraduate. I landed 10 Zoom interviews, and I got 7 in-person invites. I ended up doing 5 of those before I got the offer at Georgia Tech. And I picked Georgia Tech because my partner does BSL-4 work, and this is the only city that we can both work in. Well, and there's Boston, but they get too much snow. So it became a question of where did I want to be, where do I think I could be like the happiest, and so I ended up back at Georgia Tech and Emory. We started just under a year ago. I started in April, my postdoc Candace started in May, and then my graduate student joined us in August. And I put on here that I ended up getting the NIH NIA Mosaic R00. So the K99 R00 is kind of like a joint award. You get the K99, and then when you get your faculty position, you put in your R00 package, but it doesn't go through the whole grant system. What the CV doesn't say is that because of certain political things related to DEI, the Mosaic program was terminated, and since Mosaic was terminated, my grant got terminated. And this was right around when I was trying to recruit students, which meant that I hired 1 student instead of 2 students. And because of societies like ASM, and in particular the American Public Health Association, who sued the NIH for terminating these grants, I was able to get my award back. And so So I chose academia. It's difficult. There's a lot of rejection. But I get to ask research questions that I am primarily interested in, like how do we build better biomaterials looking at age and sex to make sure that it works for every person? And then how do we model diseases of aging, and in particular with women's health? If you look at diseases of aging, of the uterus, they're not really funded, but nobody gets to tell me that I can't study it. And so this was my career path. I'm happy to answer any questions. There's a lot of rejection, but I also have so much joy in the students that I get to train. So thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dr. Mejias. That was a really inspiring story of turning what some might think as negative things into positive things, learning and never giving up. So it's a really great inspiration. And so now we've heard from someone currently in government, but also have been in all 3 sectors in academia. And I'm very excited to introduce our 3rd panelist, Devin Swinner, who is an associate principal scientist of small molecule analytical research and development at Merck and Company. And in this current role, she's focused on preclinical and late-stage oral and sterile drug product development for infectious diseases and various cancers. She also, outside of her scientific work, has a passion and is a strong advocate for scientists from marginalized backgrounds. So join me in welcoming her to the stage.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you all for inviting me to be here. So, like we said, my name is Dr. Devin Swiner, and I work at Merck. So I'm an industry scientist, or a corporate scientist, as I like to describe it. But if I had to distill down my path into 3 words, it would be these 3: science, leadership, and community. I think for me in particular, I was in a space similar to this at a conference trying to think about how I could do it all. Like, how could I still do the science that I wanted to do, but still mentor in the ways that I wanted to do, but also be a part of programs that I wanted to lead? And the short answer is I just do all of them. So the way that I've been able to integrate my career across these 3 pillars is gonna be what I'm gonna talk to you about today. So this is just one slide, and then we'll spend a lot of time here because I'll talk about each step. I'm from Maryland, and as you can see, I did not stay in Maryland too long. When I was growing up, my parents did not have science backgrounds. I was like, I want to do science, and I was that child that asked why. Why do these things happen? What does this come from? And my parents were really great about nurturing that in me. I got all the science kits, and I have pictures that I normally show in these kind of talks where it's like forensic science kits under the Christmas tree, because that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do forensics, and as you can see, I do not do that. I make medicine. And we'll talk a little bit about where that change happened during this, but also during the Q&A. So by the time I got to high school, I was doing all of the things that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to take the AP classes, the honors classes. I was in Science National Honor Society at my high school. So everybody knew by my junior year, okay, Devin's gonna go do science when she gets to undergrad. Chemistry was the thing that just made sense. It was a way that allowed me to answer that, well, why question. So when I was looking for undergraduate institutions, I would have told you I was going to Penn State. Penn State was like my #1 choice. They had a forensic chemistry program, and that's what I wanted to do. But then Pitt kept sending me stuff in the mail. And I was like, okay, let me see what this is like. So I applied to the University of Pittsburgh, and when I went to visit, it was a glorious day. Pittsburgh was beautiful, it was sunny, and all of these things, and I hear people laughing because you probably know what the punchline of this is. My very first semester, it was very, very cold. I got so sick, I had no idea. It was gloomy, because it's a steel town, right? But Pitt was a transformative experience for me. I do not regret my decision to be a Pitt Panther, and part of that was because I was able to kind of figure things out. I tell people all the time that I stumbled upon meeting the right people at the right time, and what I want to let you all know is that what's for you will not miss. It won't. And I got to undergrad, again, not really knowing how to pursue forensic chemistry, so I didn't know I was supposed to do undergraduate research. I didn't start undergraduate research until the spring semester of my junior year. I was supposed to get a master's in forensic chemistry and then go off to work after that. And then this little lady walked up to me at a poster session and asked me about my HPLC poster. And I was just talking to her about how we did HPLC analysis for caffeine and caffeine content in different sodas. And then she was asking me questions about it and asked me, are you doing research right now? I was like, no. She's like, well, do you want to? Sure, like I hadn't seen this lady before. I had no idea what undergraduate research was supposed to look like. So she invited me to her office, and Dr. Tara Meyer does polymer science. Tara met with me and was like, yeah, so we make block copolymers with lactic acid and glycolic acid, and my eyes glazed over, like, what are you talking about, lady? That's not something that you're learning in these undergraduate classrooms. So I said, okay, sure, why not? I told her, like, here's my plan. Get my degree in chemistry, go get a master's in forensics, and then go work. And she was like, okay, yeah, that sounds good, but what about a PhD? I also had another mentor in Dr. Renee Robinson, who's a former national president of Nobuche, and Renee also was like, okay, I hear you, Devin, but like you can also go get a PhD in analytical chemistry. And that's what ended up happening. They knew me better than I knew myself at that point. So then I went to Ohio State as a grad student, and my work there was with mass spectrometry. So I have a polymer background, I have a mass spec background, and we were building new technologies with mass spec. And that's where I got that bug of like, oh, pharma would be really cool. Being able to develop new tools or new therapeutics that directly affects patients was something that was super interesting to me. I wasn't really thinking about Merck at the time. I was just like, oh, okay, I think I want to do this. I wanted to continue to do research in those ways. And because I've always gone to big schools, why not go large pharma? So Merck was a place that I ended up, and that was my what I call my first big girl job out of graduate school. And I currently sit in our small molecule analytical R&D department, and I develop solid oral and sterile drug products. Something that I never would have thought when I walked on Pitt's campus for the first day that I would get to, but this is what I'm doing now. But the other part of my story that I think is really important is this leadership aspect and this aspect of community. All along the way, I had organizations and professional societies like Nobishe that helped foster my sense of self, but also just me as a scientist. And I've been fortunate enough to sit on Nobishe's executive board. I currently chair one of their Leadership Academy programs, and that is work that's been transformative and additive to my actual technical career. But it all started just like this. I was in a room trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do. So briefly, I want to tell you guys, well, what does an industry scientist mean? I essentially do these two big things. I problem solve and I collaborate. The problem solving is on a technical basis, so I serve as an analytical lead that sits on cross-functional teams to try to take compounds into the clinic and hopefully onto commercialization. We investigate impurities, degradation pathways, chemical stability. We're also on the forefront of informing on formulation development. But it's also insanely collaborative. None of my work is done in a silo anymore, which has been really cool. I get to talk to and work with folks in the clinical space, in the formulation space, in biopharmaceutics, et cetera, and we get to do these things together. My work is influenced by other departments. The work that I do influences folks downstream, which is a really cool way to do science. So the other thing that is really important is that Merck is a global company, so we do get to collaborate across our other sites, but also other contract research organizations to support the development, manufacture, and commercialization of our products. And then briefly, I just wanted to talk about what you can do at Merck. And this is for undergrads, grads, and even early career folks, just in case you all are curious, like, okay, well, how do I even get to this? Merck has lots of opportunities as far as internships and co-ops, so that's available for undergrads and graduate students. We also give out a lot of research awards. So we have a lot of collaborations with the American Chemical Society that gives awards out to women, that gives awards out to LGBTQ+ folks in our community, that pay you to go speak at an ACS conference, and some awards, like our Next Gen Leaders Award, pays you to present your work at Merck. So that's another opportunity to consider. Another thing I wanted to highlight really briefly for our early career scientists, so graduate students, if you're thinking about maybe I want to do industry, maybe I don't want to do industry, we do postdocs. That's a little known fact that some people don't know. I didn't think about industry and postdoc in the same way, or that those two things went together, but that is also an opportunity that you all can take advantage of as well. I'm happy to talk a whole lot more about how I'm integrating science, leadership, and community in the Q&A, and also happy to talk about more opportunities at Merck. Thank you for listening.
Hello? Okay, good, it's on. Okay, great. So now you've heard 3 different stories from people working in different sectors and really interesting pathways. And what's important to remember is that they started kind of where you are right now, and one way or another found their path. And what I think is really nice about these stories is just how different they are and how you can blaze your own trail. And when you're sitting there, you might think you have to know exactly how it's going to work out, but guess what? Life doesn't work like that. It kind of unfolds itself to you as you are curious and you overcome barriers that are perceived, or you just find your way. So that's a really important message for all you to take home. So now we're going to have a little kind of informal Q&A. And so let's see. Get my questions back. Okay, so for Dr. Swinner, so I'm just really curious, and I think the audience might like to know, kind of, you shared a bit, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit of kind of what drew you into industry, and how is that enabling you to really pursue your passions for helping others?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I vividly remember in grad school, my group, a couple of us were doing fatty acid analysis in the lab. And my PI at the time came to me and was like, okay, Devin, you're doing fatty acid analysis. What do you want to do it for? So he just let me pick the application, figure out what the project was going to be, and was just curious of what I was going to come up with. And that was really the first time I got to think about, oh, well, what questions do I actually want to answer? I ended up using fatty acids as biomarkers for different diseases, which was really fascinating. And it kind of, the light bulb went off of like, oh, this is the type of translational work that I want to do. So then it was a matter of figuring out, okay, well, what does that look like in practice? And I knew I didn't have like a single scientific question I wanted to answer. I wanted to answer a bunch of them. Like I like this idea of developing therapeutics or developing tools that directly affected patients. And where I sit at Merck is right before the clinical phases. So the work that we're doing in lab mimics what's actually gonna go in clinical trials for patients, and I love that idea. So that was how that kind of happened. As far as how that enables me to help marginalized groups, it's something that I use to enhance that. Like being at a global company like Merck, it's a large company, so we get visibility and we get to come to conferences and I get to share my story, give advice, still mentor in those ways, both outside of the company, but also inside the company. Because like I was talking about briefly in my slides, I sit on cross-functional teams. So how I show up as a teammate, as a collaborator, how I train other people on how they show up, how they should collaborate with others, is all a part of the ways that I do that. I've also been fortunate enough to serve on hiring panels, so making sure that how we're getting the word out about our job postings is equitable. Do people have access to that? Making sure that like my network knows things that are going on. So those are all ways that I kind of use one to influence the other.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. Really, really great. One other thing that I wanted to highlight for people in the audience is that, you know, you talk a lot about the collaborative environment that you work at in industry, which like Dr. Bonivel, I've worked in all three sectors, and that's one of the things that is very noticeable in the different sectors. Some are much more collaborative, some are more like in academia, you know, you're the PI, you get to come up with your own ideas, and so it's kind of more of a, your own kind of ideas and whatnot, so I think that's really important for you when you're thinking about which path you want to go. Think about who you are and what's important to you and what will kind of make your heart sing. Very nice. Okay, so for Dr. Mejias, so you're clearly someone who doesn't give up easily. Can you tell us how and where have you found and continue to find your inspiration to face the challenges that you end up facing?
So I have two older brothers, and I think there was a little bit of growing up with two very aggressive older brothers that gave you a little bit more ability to face challenges like that. But I chose my mentors and my community, and I came back to Georgia Tech and Emory because I knew the people, and I knew that when I had been a student, even facing all of these challenges, that I had had really good mentors. And so for me, I didn't have people on my slides except me and a couple of my students, but like the people are so incredibly important that are around you. And I didn't talk about research because the reality is it's always people over projects. I briefly talked about research, but to me, you know, my family is very important. My brothers always remind me that I'm not that important. And then I've got two beautiful nieces, and so sometimes it'll be a rough day, and I get this adorable picture of my niece who's managed to get a plant to grow, and she's 3, and I kill all of my plants, so, you know. So yeah, there's more to just all of these failures happen, and they aren't a reflection of me as a person. They're of like the work that I want to do, but sometimes, you know, the people are more important than the projects.
Very nice, great lesson. And in science, of course, we like to say that failures are what you learn from, right? You really, really learn from quote failures. They're not really failures at all. They're ways to, you're just experimenting and you're finding things out. So thanks so much for sharing that. Okay, Dr. Bonivel. So when you started your career path, we kind of know because you shared it already, but I'm guessing you didn't imagine yourself working in a U.S. government agency affecting national policy. So could you expand a little bit about that journey and how you feel about that now?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I never would have thought that I would be doing what I'm doing now. I like to say, you guys are a little bit younger, but The Price is Right used to come on, and my mom loved that show. And there was a game on there called Palinko, and you would drop, the ball would drop, and it would just bounce around until it eventually found its hole. Well, that's kind of what my career has been like. It's just been bouncing around and trying to figure out where do I exactly fit. But I think that being able to, what I do enjoy is being able to influence these policies and influence. I work for a 2-star now, and so it's very interesting the dynamics in how you talk to certain people in power because they only want yes or no answers, right? So I walk into a briefing and it's yes or no, 3 decisions, 3 bullet points. Are we doing this or are we not doing this? And where in a community of scientists and engineers, we're all about collaboration and let's talk about it and how do we feel about it and let's all kumbaya and then we all come to a united front. It's not like that when I work in my day job now. And so I think that learning both sides and being able to do both sides has been something I've truly enjoyed, but it's also something that I think is unique to working in a federal agency because sometimes the answer is just yes or no. And I'm not sure if that exactly answered your question, but it's just something I like to highlight, that it's always being able to play both sides of the fence. You gotta really be able to do that when working in this particular policy area with the government.
Right, really nice. But what an honor to be able to have that kind of influence at a national scale. And but to complement that, if you don't mind, I ask a follow-up question. You do this work with the think tank, so let everyone know about how that is a nice way to complement your government work.
Absolutely. So the Atlantic Council is a think tank. Most people have probably heard of Brookings, but the Atlantic Council is just another version of that. And I'm a senior fellow there. The work I do for the Department of War, I am unable to talk about. Please don't ask me any questions about anything that is going on today, please. But with the think tank, the Geotech Center specifically, we're looking at technology for good and how do we use up-and-coming technology to solve the world's problems. It is one of the most impactful things I've ever done and that I enjoy because in my day job, it can be, humdrum, try to figure out how to blow things up or whatever else, whatever the case may be. But in my other day job, I really am trying to better the world. How do we make the world a better place using technology, using the things that we have developed, using AI, using everything that has come out of a lab in forward thinking. And so my horizon scan is what is the technology that is going to change the world 7 years from now? Whereas DARPA may be 20 years from now, that's so far away and we just don't know. But 7 years is just a sweet spot. And so we really focus on how we can implement these things and then getting countries and getting other places to buy into that on an international scale. And I think that that's being able to say, we are all living on this one world and we all need to come together and figure out how to make sure we can live together peacefully and use technology to make sure that happens.
Very nice. Seems like two perfect jobs for someone who's really curious and probably has a lot of imagination about seeing the future and what could become, not just what is today. Great. Okay, so now I'm going to go into some questions for any or all of the panelists. And the first one, I'm just going to follow up on what Dr. Mejias has kind of thread that she threw out there regarding mentors. So you said that you were careful in picking your mentors. So how did you go about deciding who was going to be lucky enough to be your mentor?
Only sometimes.
Only sometimes.
So I've had a mix of both good and bad mentors. I choose to remember the good. And I, like with most things, I feel like it's just been sheer luck. Did I know what I was doing to get to an academic position? No. did I somehow manage to find my mentor who helped me get there? Yes, and I picked him because he made a funny face at me in a meeting. And so there's a lot about personality match in your mentors. Like, I have a mentor now that I think if I had worked with him as a graduate student, I probably wouldn't be in academia, just because we would have been a poor fit as a PhD mentor. But he's a wonderful mentor to me throughout my PhD, not being my direct advisor. And so some of it's luck. I still have mentors that sometimes I'm like, I think you give me more concerns than not concerns, and then I turn around and I go to the mentors who help me answer those questions a little bit better, and they're like, oh yeah, here's what you need to do. But the mentors who are giving me concerns, it's legitimate things that I need to start thinking about. And so, yeah.
I would follow that up with saying that I think mentors are extremely important. They help you to drive your path, but you also need sponsors. And there's a difference. Your sponsor, my sponsor's in here, Mr. Bernard Batson from the University of South Florida. I don't know if he's in here, but he's somewhere around here, and he's probably mad that I said that. But he spoke for me in rooms when I wasn't there to ensure that when I wasn't there, somebody heard my name and knew who I was and was able to make sure that they moved me forward in rooms where I'm not there. And so that sponsor is somebody, that's your cheerleader. He's cheerleaded many students, but I'm just gonna highlight myself because he made sure I was paid and that I got a job. So kudos to you, Mr. Batson, wherever you're at in here.
Okay, great. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I can add something from the industry's perspective. So we get assigned a technical mentor when you get there. We also have managers. So I'll just speak on a mentor that I was given. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes the situation is, okay, you're paired with this person for XYZ reason. But me and my supervisor, I tell everybody that I'm his favorite direct report. I started at Merck when we were hybrid, so during the pandemic in 2021, so we had to be besties. I was only on site when he was on site, and we both couldn't be on site all 5 days. But Zhao and I took so much time in my first 6 months when we were hybrid, really just getting to know each other. And he turned out to be one of my sponsors. One of my managers moved from our department to a different department right around the time that I was up for promotion. And I was like, okay, what's gonna happen here? But my supervisor was that person in the room. And every time there's a resource conversation, he's like, yep, Devin can do it. Yep, Devin can do this. That's so important. So even if you're assigned or given a mentor, take time to build that relationship so that it hopefully becomes something fruitful on the other side.
Great, thank you all. Okay, another question for the panels. What unexpected circumstances have you encountered, and what sort of impact did they have on your trajectory? Pick your favorite one.
So I didn't put, it's in my resume, it's on my CV, but I think failure is probably one of the best things, the biggest tools I've got. So in 2025, I was a NASA astronaut candidate finalist. And so that's a 3-month training program where you're trying to become an astronaut. The cut went from 9,000 to 100, from 100 to 40. And so I went to that 40 and they picked 10. Now, obviously I'm not a NASA astronaut, so I didn't make that 10. But what it gave me was the experience was so unique and such an impact on my life, on how I want to change, how I want to do leadership, how I want to make sure more people hear about this and know about these programs that allow you to do life-changing things. For me, I just wanted to leave the planet. I like traveling, so I wanted to leave the planet. That was really why I applied. Don't use that reason to apply, guys, just so you know. But what it did for me was say that it let me know where I had deficiencies, right? So you can think, you do these psychiatry panels and you do all of these things and you learn more about yourself and the things that you need to work on than I've ever learned before. So I think failing at something really motivated me to do more and be more. And I'll probably apply again. I don't know, I haven't decided that yet. But it's just one of those things that I think failing helps to move you forward in life. And that would be my
Okay, absolutely.
My favorite is when I didn't get an internship when I was at Pitt. So my forensics dreams, I think I was probably my junior year there. I applied for a fellowship or for an internship at the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's Office. And I was so excited. I was like, yep, this is how I'm gonna get my foot in the door. This is how I'm gonna know if this is what I wanna do. And I was distraught when I did not get picked. I went to Tara's office so upset that I didn't get it, and I was not okay. But I think with that, what that turned into was there's more than one way to get to where you're going. Because fast forward a year later, Tara took me to my very first Nobuche conference. She knew what I wanted to do, so she talked to every single person at every single table that her undergrad was there. And one of the tables she talked to was for the Drug Enforcement Agency. So at the DEA, she was like, Devin, go talk to the people at the DEA table because they have internships open. And it turned out I ended up with an internship at the DEA. So that no at the Allegheny County Medical Examiner's Office turned into a yes a year later because I had somebody like Tara in my corner that really taught me that I could still get to where I thought I wanted to go in a different way.
I think I listed most of mine. But one of the things that I've noticed each time that I have failed spectacularly is there's always somebody who will text me and be like, are you okay? And it's that are you okay of somebody just being like, finding those people and knowing that they just check that I'm okay. Yes, I did fall flat on my face, but that's okay.
Really nice, great. Okay, so we're going to move into the audience questions section now. So I'm going to move my way to the podium. You guys also can move to the podium. This is your opportunity to learn more about these pathways.
And while the questions are coming up, I would like to let everyone know that the DoD sponsors a SMART fellowship. We do not get enough applicants. That fellowship pays for all 5 years of your PhD at $60K a year, and they pay for your tuition. You owe 1 year back to a federal agency, just one. So please, SMART, like you all are SMART, S-M-A-R-T, please apply to that fellowship because I would love for you all to get your PhDs and your master's degrees paid for.
And it doesn't have to be the DoD.
And it doesn't have to be the DoD.
Great. Okay, don't be shy. I know this. There's probably lots of questions. Please feel free to come up to the microphones. Oh, there we go. We have some over here. Sorry, I missed you.
No worries. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Austin McCormick. I am an undergraduate freshman at Norwich University. I'm in the honors program as well. One of the big themes I love that you guys talked about was how everyone's story deserves to be heard. And I really agree that communication science and just like how research is presented is so vital to spreading an idea to an audience, especially an audience of unique backgrounds. So my big question to everyone is, as young researchers, what can we do to credit other people's backgrounds when we present our findings? Like, how can we put ourselves in others' shoes better?
Great question. Anyone want to start?
I think, okay, I'm shooting off the hip here. I think what you would really want to do, you want to make sure, so when you're doing your peer review publications, I know they have the first and the second author. I think when you're presenting, you always acknowledge those folks. I think it's a hard thing to do when you want to give them their flowers, right? And so you're trying to make sure that you acknowledge them while also acknowledging your work, but you got to highlight them and yourself. So I couldn't do this without. We want to give thanks to, so on and so forth. Now, this is not the best answer for you, and I'm also far removed from those type of things nowadays, but that's just that would be my advice. I'm always thankful. I'm always trying to reach back. I'm always trying to be able to help someone that behind me because I was helped to pull up from in front of me.
I think another thing that you can do on the front end of that, so before it even gets to you're presenting, really make sure that you're bringing diverse voices to the table when you start. So if you're thinking about a project, vet it by your classmates, other folks in different departments. That's also another way to do exactly the thing that you're asking.
Yes, absolutely. So just to follow up on that, one of the things that we get asked a lot of times, how can we make sure that we're including everyone? And the thing that I mentioned to people, which a lot of people forget, is look around the room and see who's not here. Those are the people that you need to make sure you invite. So we'll go over here.
Hi, my name is Amaya Miller. I'm currently a sophomore chemical engineering student at University of Cincinnati. And so my question is, how does your research on mass spectrometry translate to your work in Merck?
Yeah, that's a great question because I barely do mass spec anymore, and it makes me so sad. But what I do now is when I see a problem that could be solved with mass spec, I take that opportunity. The other thing that I do a lot in my department is I essentially consult with other people that are doing mass spec. Because that still gives me that connection to the technology, and because it is a subject that I'm an expert in. So those are the two big ways. So we had this other group in our department that was called Mass Spec for the Masses. So we're in charge of essentially training our department on like, hey, mass spec is a really good tool. Here are applications across the pipeline, across different modalities where you can do that. So that's the most that I do with mass spec now, but every now and then I get to get in the lab and actually touch a mass spec.
Thank you.
Thank you. How about here in the center?
Hi, my name is Paulina. I'm a first-year graduate student, and my question is for Dr. Bonivel. So I am interested in science policy, and I wanted to ask, what was the program that you mentioned? And then also, what can students start doing now to start having that transformation outside of those policy rooms and actually bringing it forward, like, acting to promote that change that we want to see outside of the policy rooms?
Absolutely. Thank you, Paulina. Actually, we have a AAAS fellow right here in Edwin. You should absolutely speak with him later, but he is it's the AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship, STPF. It's a lot of words, but ask any of the AAAS staff and they will be happy to tell you about it. It is, again, it's a fantastic program. The second part of your question, what can you do? So one thing they teach you in this policy fellowship is that all politics is local, right? So go on your campus, go to see if you have a science communications class or a science communications workshops that you can begin to start farming out some of your ideas and what you want to highlight, right? So for me, I focus on advanced materials, and one of the things that we wanted to do was MGI, Materials Genome Initiative. How do we move that forward faster to make more materials? So you got to talk about, I talk with people from other agencies and other what do you call them, Novache and these professional societies, thank you. These other professional societies, they have a leg up. They also can sponsor you for these fellowships. So remember to go talk to these ACS, all of these ASME, I'm ASME, but American Chemical Society, all of these societies can sponsor you for these fellowships, and they always have a science communication arm. So I think that would be a great way for you to start.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. All right, over here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Vasquez. I'm a student at the University of Puerto Rico. I wanted to thank everyone for bringing up the topic of failure. It's a topic I relate to, for I've encountered a lot of setbacks, and I'm just really grateful it's open to conversation. I wanted to ask everyone, I know there are students who still hesitate to take space and take advantage of the opportunities, and sometimes they end up rejecting themselves before they put themselves out there. And I'm very grateful for the space we're having here today, since it's given us the opportunity to do so. But outside of this conference, what advice would you give to those students?
Yeah. So as my partner often likes to say, do it with the confidence of a bald white man, because he is a bald white man. And so many times I talk to him and he's like, you're self-selecting and you need to stop because you have a better CV than me and I would even apply to this. And it's really hard to do. I think there were 3 faculty positions I applied to that had cardiac calls, and I don't do cardiac work. Like, it's a stretch to say that I do cardiac work. And I still interviewed with 2 of them, and one of them was like, why are you concerned about cardiac? And it's just somebody had written the word cardiac and they didn't care. So just apply. I had a student tell me to apply to the L'Oreal for Women in Science, and I did, and I didn't realize how incredibly competitive that is. So some of that's also just ignorance too. You just have to submit things and hope for the best. And for those of you who are putting in graduate applications, if you are concerned about your GPA, please, please, please explain why your GPA isn't what you hope it would be and how you would improve, because that looks really, really good to us when we're reading, as we are currently reading faculty applications, or PhD applicants.
Okay, good. I think we have time for one more question over here.
Hi, my name is Allison Kolkel, and I'm a senior at the University of Illinois. My question is, what advice do you have for students looking to start their PhD straight out of undergrad?
My advice would be to do it. Don't go to work, because once you start making money, it's so hard to go back. And kudos to anybody that's gone back after working for 4 or 5 years and gotten their PhD. I knew what broke was, and so $30,000 was rich to me, right? So because I had just come from undergrad, so getting paid to go to school was amazing, and that you can live off of that money. But if you start making your 70 or 80K and then have to go back to a 30K stipend, that's just not the jump you want to make, in my opinion. So I would say if you want to go directly from undergrad, look for a program that does a straight to PhD program, and just go right ahead. Just get. That's the way I did it. Just straight through. Before I could see a dollar, I just went through, so I didn't have to worry about it. That's my personal experience.
I entirely agree. I don't think I would. I don't think I could make it back after making some money. No, but also ask the students if they're happy in their program.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to move into the closing remarks. Before we do that, I would be remiss if I didn't share with you guys some exciting news, and that's that at Sustainable Horizons Institute, we recently got a new grant from the National Science Foundation. How many have heard of this thing that's kind of sweeping the world right now called AI? Probably have heard, right? Either that or you're living in a cave. So we're really lucky to have received a grant from the National Science Foundation for our program called the Sustainable Research Pathways. And through this program, we're bringing new people into the National AI Research Resource Initiative. So if you're interested at all about AI and possibly an opportunity to get to work with some of the current PIs, come down and visit us in our booth during the exhibitor hours. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to the panels and let them kind of give their final remarks in response to this kind of question that I put together. So what is the one thing that you did early in your career that you're most thankful for? And what's the most significant lessons you learned that helped you to get where you are today?
I can start. So I think for me, the answer is one and the same. I've actively been listening to the people around me, my mentors, my peers, when I started at my job, just listening, because that helps me make informed decisions, and it helps me learn and grow. So I think active listening is the lesson, and also what I'm grateful that I started my career doing.
Great.
I think it's really hard, but as we've noticed, there's a lot of really mean people in the world. You don't have to be one of those people who's mean to yourself, and so just remove yourself from that side of the thing, and it might get a little bit easier.
Okay, be kind to yourself. I like that.
I think my biggest advice for early career professionals is don't say no. People are going to come to you for something. They're going to ask you for something. Hey, can you do this? I know it could be strenuous on you, but don't say no, because the yeses you give open other opportunities, particularly if you do a good job. And then if you do a bad job, they won't ask you to do it again. So it's a win-win situation.
It's a win-win.
So you can either do a great job and you get to do more, or don't ever have to do that particular task again. And so I think that is something I did early on in my career, and I kind of, again, bounced around. But it allowed me to figure out what I liked, because I've learned to like things that I never thought I would like, just by saying yes and being open to try something different.
Very good. Okay, well, let's thank our panelists. And enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Are there any announcements? Yes. Oh, there we go. Yep, thank you. That's all right.
Good afternoon. I want to thank again the panelists for sharing your career pathway stories and for reminding us to be curious, tenacious, and to connect with our community. For this afternoon, announcements are the exhibit hall is open from 1:30 to 4, so be sure to stop by and learn about the academic programs, career pathways, and organizations that can help support your next steps in STEM. Concurrent workshop sessions 2 and 3 will happen this afternoon. Session 2, poster and oral presentations, will begin at 4 p.m. Dinner tonight is on your own, and breakfast is on your own tomorrow morning. Okay, so just have that in mind. And then presentations and workshops will start at 8 a.m. tomorrow. And that's it. You are ready. I think things start around 2, except for the exhibit hall being open at 1:30, so you have a little bit of time.